Hello, everybody. Second time. This is official start of our event. I would like to say hello to Michał Jarski, who is director for Eastern Europe at Forcepoint. So, Michał, it's your turn for introduction.
Thank you, Przemek. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I believe we have very, very interesting subject to discuss today. Looking at the list of the participants, which is rapidly growing, I hope it will be also a very good experience for all of you. If you have any questions, we have, of course, the chat window available, and I will be happy to take those questions and answer them as quickly as we can.
Maybe at the beginning you can introduce yourself, tell something about you, because we know together for I don't know how big time. Yes, it is more than 10 years together. So maybe you can tell something about yourself.
Words about myself.
We have some connection problem.
Working in IT. I'm working in the. Is it good? Is it good now?
It's okay.
So, as promised, 2 words about myself. I'm working in the IT security space for more than 25 years now, gathering the experiences with both the major IT security players like Checkpoint, Tenable, ISS, Trend Micro, but also with the local startups that are having some brilliant new idea that that the market will need in the future. Currently, with Forcepoint, responsible for Central Eastern Europe, and working with a team of brilliant people who are working with the market, with the customers and partners about the data security solutions, both for the IT but also OT customers, and of course, NIS2 subject is very close to our hearts. So I think we'll be having a very nice exchange of thoughts today.
Title of our today's meeting is a little complicated, I think, because I see that participants of our event are not only security officers. So title of our event is Converging Information System and Zero Trust Isolation. Because of that, I have first question to you. Why we should isolate data? Why is it so important?
Well, that's one of the fundamental ideas behind information security, because of course, the future, the progress, the ability to operate any system depends on access to information, access to data. But at the same time, to keep it separate, because then you can assign certain access rights, then you can execute and enforce those access rights. Otherwise, everything is public. It's the same way like you do it with your house. Instead of keeping it open for everybody, in order to keep it private and protected, you're closing the doors, you're closing the windows, and certain let's say barriers between areas of the house.
Okay, Michał, my second question is connected to directly with title. What is a system convergence? Why is it so natural in IT?
Well, because based on this first statement that we need to divide systems into certain domains of information processing, at some moment in time, you still need to communicate between those domains. So once a while, you need to open the doors and move some objects from one room to another room. So in the information systems, we need to sometimes share the information, share some specific data, and the granularity of this sharing is a fundamental question, because if you just open the door, every if you look at the example of a factory where you have the IT system, which is supporting the office, and some operation technology system, that the production support, or the production automation system. And in the past, the best approach has been to just divide those two systems and do not connect them at all. This was the best approach to secure the production floor. Nothing from the office could go in. So even if there was a virus infection somewhere there, this bad stuff could not go into the production automation systems. And vice versa, if something went wrong in the OT environment, you could basically be sure that it is not going into the office network. However, because these production automation systems are becoming more and more sophisticated, and we want to also to have bigger flexibility in adjusting how the production is actually happening. So today, the demand is to produce only yellow cars, but maybe tomorrow only green cars. So this order to switch the production to a different mode in the past could be that you had time to adjust, to change the parameters of the production. Instead of the yellow cars, you were producing the green cars, but it took time. We want to be more agile, more flexible. So this order for changing the production is coming directly from the office system. The lucky of us who can order some really luxury cars. You can configure the car on the producer website. You can build your Tesla car however you want, and then the order how to build this car is going directly into the production system. So obviously,
Michał, I have asked to you, because you squeeze sometimes, so maybe you can switch to mobile internet connection, because I see that there is some notices from audience.
Let me try to do that.
So please, one moment, patient. We are waiting for Michał, because Michał is switching internet connection. I hope that after that it will be much better. I see that there is a second Michał Jarski, so probably this is Michał on mobile internet connection, and in few seconds we can start.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think that you're back, but we have the second Michał who is frozen in 100%.
Okay.
Okay, so you are back, and I think that it will be much better now. So maybe we can go to the third question and third topic, because very often we don't know that we are hacked. Hackers are not interested in showing that they have access to our data. So how we should know about it? how we should protect?
Well, that's again something which is usually expected by let's say the security frameworks, that you should be able to detect bad things happening in your system. The problem with the currently available security detection mechanism is that they know what to detect based on the past. They know what happened in the past, how the attacks were executed, what kind of malware was delivered, what was the type of this virus that was attacking the system, what type of network traffic you could see that was a symptom of the attack. So this is really something based on the past knowledge, while the attackers they really work all the time on something new. They were coming up always with something which was bypassing the detection. So the viruses from static code started to be dynamic. So every new variant of the virus was different. We could see the strains of the viruses, which were every single code was different, and basically was not possible to form a kind of pattern that would be recognizable by the detection mechanism. And this goes to any attack method. If we know the past, the system detecting knows how to identify the bad traffic, how to identify the bad program, how to identify some bad behavior. But the attackers always change the way they operate. So detection is extremely hard. And detection means that lack of detection means that even if you have the most modern antivirus systems, even if you have the most modern IPS systems, there's always a chance that you don't see what is actually happening in your network. The bad guys, they can stay under the radar, knowing that, for example, only at a certain threshold of activity, the detectors will start ringing the alarm. So the statistics are showing that the attackers can stay undetected in many systems for hundreds of days. We're talking about 200, 300 days of staying in the network, staying in the system, doing some malicious activity without being actually noticed by the security systems. This results in the ability of attackers to prepare multiple things and execute multiple things in the system they control. They can extract data. They can leave some time bombs. They can execute as the final act of their activity and ransomware attack. So it seems that the detection mechanisms are not good enough currently, and we should focus more on prevention and more on assuming less about the readiness of our system to see the malicious activity. Again, looking at the statistics, we have a very long time before any activity is detected. Looking at the statistics, from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report, we see that the companies cannot actually detect the presence of the hackers in their system. So they are notified by the third parties, notified by their contractors, notified by their business partners that something is wrong, and only then they start to look at the system. It's quite easy to demonstrate how to create a super user in the system in the way that it's not really visible to detection mechanisms, and quite undetectable from the perspective that it looks like this new super user with privileged access rights is actually created by one of the current admins. It's absolutely mind-boggling, but it seems that the detection is, of course, necessary, but it's not good enough to actually protect the IT and OT systems from being exploited by the bad guys.
Okay. Why and how we should protect critical infrastructure and real-time operations?
Well, obviously, we want any system to operate continuously, but this is kind of a goodwill. Now, one of the elements of the subjects of the subject of today's discussion is this NIS2 regulation from European Union, and this regulation has been created in order to focus on the companies and the services they are operating, which are essential for the countries and for European Union as such, as a multinational organization. So if you imagine what can happen if you suddenly don't have power, or if you suddenly cannot execute a banking operation, or if you cannot call, or like in our case, have this conversation over internet, we should focus on continuity of delivery of those services, which are critical from the perspective of functioning of the country and union as a cluster of countries, to make sure that even if there is an attack, even if there is an incident, we know that this incident actually happened. We know how it was addressed and what mechanism can be used to prevent escalation of the event, escalation of this incident towards the other entities which are providing those essential services to the community. So that's one angle. Another angle is, of course, the production as such, so not just services, but production of certain goods or certain services, where you would like to keep the stability and safety of the final product. So we want to prevent someone manipulating the chemicals which are produced in the production lines, the pharmaceuticals. We want to prevent the situation where we cannot, for example, produce enough vaccine to address a potential big outbreak. We want to prevent, want to keep the safety of the food, safety of cars or vehicles which are being produced on some production lines. So from the perspective of continuity, perspective of safety of the produced goods, this is what we want to keep as a certain level, certain standard. And we, at the same time, we realize that there are many ways how this production can be influenced, how it can be destabilized, how it can be modified without the actual will from the companies operating those production lines. So it can be an event coming from IT side. This can be a sabotage. This can be anything which is happening either inside or outside the company. So one of the previous questions about why we want to at the same time keep certain areas separate but need to keep communication between, for example, office network and production line of the pharmaceutical. This is because of the need to have modern production lines, but at the same time, this is exposing such systems to potential attacks, to potential sabotage. And NIS2 and NIS2 framework is there to, first of all, visualize and make visible the importance of such of the state stability of the production systems, services which are essential for the country, and also which procedures are in place to address the incident, respond to the incident, what procedures are there for human resources management, which procedures are there for risk assessment, how the risk is taken into account when thinking about modeling of the threats and addressing those threats. So how we can actually see what are the actual risks, how those risks can be handled, what is needed to handle those risks, how we identify the actual malicious activity, and how we respond to this.
My next question is easy. What is zero trust concept? It means that we should trust nobody. It means nobody. It meaning of person, of people, and systems.
No, zero trust is a is a perfect term to have a much longer discussion than just this 1 hour. It's of course not meaning that we do not trust, because trust is something that is built into human mind, and we need to trust each other. Otherwise, we go into more like paranoia, and it's not healthy for anyone. So zero trust is the approach which says that we have to be more granular as of granting access to information, as of granting access to systems, not assuming that if someone is, for example, coming from using my computer, immediately this guy has got full access to all the information in my company network. It means that even if they are using my computer, even if they are using some other elements which were provided by the company, they still need to verify their identity, and all the security policies should be linked to this identity. It means that we are not assuming that if someone is working from a certain network, like from office network of the company, immediately have full access to everything. It means that, for example, many of the companies were using the VPNs in order to give access to their internal resources to the remote users. But then they realized that if someone has got access to the VPN, immediately has got access to everything inside the company. So when they were building their whole security based on the concept that they have a good barrier between the organization and the outside world, suddenly those VPNs are just the holes in this barrier through which anyone can basically enter the system without any further controls. So zero trust approach is to think about all the information process. So where data is stored, how data is accessed, how data is transferred between different points, and how data is in general built into different business processes in the way that we are not assuming certain things, and we are just verifying always on the way that it's the right person having the right access, that is the right data that can be given in different contexts. So to give you an example, real life. So right now I'm working from my company computer, but assuming that I'm on holidays on some nice beach somewhere far away, and I'm called to do something because there's an urgent need, and the process involves my look into the data, and I cannot do it from my computer. I have to do it from my phone, for example. Because the situation is different, because I am far away, I'm in the country that might not have the best security controls in place, maybe even have some intention to look into the communication of the citizens. Because I'm working then from a device which is not managed by the company, I'm given different access, so different type of data is visible to me. Maybe not everything, maybe not everything which is usually visible from when I'm doing this from my company computer, but maybe only the things which are needed for this specific task. And only that, nothing else. Now, this means that, in the past, the granularity of the controls was basically minimized to just the fact that my IP address is like this, my address that that's associated with my device is like that. Maybe it has been limited to the fact that I'm the employee of the company, and that's it. Now, zero trust means that we are assuming that the policies are bound to a certain person, and secondly, that we are assuming that this person account, this person user profile, this person's computer might be compromised. That maybe on my phone there is a worm, or maybe on my computer, which I'm using at a certain moment, there is a spyware installed, and we need to adjust the policies to the fact that this external factor is present, which means that transfer of the data is possible, but based on the checks, secondary checks of my terminal, my person, my identity, we are we are assigning different access rights, different policies, different controls, and we are looking at the risk rating of this activity in permanent mode.
Okay, next my question is connected with many regulations we have in cybersecurity. My question is about compliance and why compliant isn't equal secure.
Because compliance is actually a framework which is bringing security to the right attention level. It's very easy to say that security is just pure cost, but in fact, when you realize that securing the system means also making sure that the system is working continuously, without this attention that is granted by the need for compliance, the need for meeting certain norms, meeting certain requirements. This is a fundamental change of the visibility of security as business enabler, as something which is allowing organization to operate both internally but also in the interaction with the others. So again, if you look at the NIS2, there is a big emphasis on supply chains. So if you are any company that uses those external services, third-party services, you want to be sure that those services are delivered in a safe way. Not even IT, not even data data transfer, but everything from power supply, logistics, everything which is linked with the continuity of your business. If you run the production line, you want to make sure that the transport company, the logistic company is operating even under high stress, even under high attack from let's say east of from us. So the supply chain is here. Security of the supply chain is also important from the perspective of again regulation and making sure that everybody who is involved in production processes, in service delivery, is secured enough to help you maintain the continuity of your business. But of course, it doesn't mean that no one will break in, that no one will be able to penetrate the system. It means that you should have controls in place, that if some such thing happens, if the incident is detected internally or externally, that you have the right procedures in place to handle this, to isolate such event, to prevent escalation of such event, and to make sure that those events are correctly reflected in the network of companies cooperating together, building the stability of the country or union of the countries like in the EU.
Okay, we will finish soon our meeting, so I think this is good time for asking Michał about different things. You can ask Michał using chat, and I will go for the next point. What about encryption in NIS2? There is anything you can talk about that?
Well, NIS2 is of course building on the foundation that was laid down by NIS. NIS was the initial NIS from 2016 was kind of like very, very rudimentary framework showing there are companies which are not government, which are not state, but they deliver essential services, essential production that the country depends on. The controls in place were really let's say rudimentary, and if you look at those past couple of years, I haven't heard of any fine, any consequence of not meeting the NIS requirements. The NIS2 is changing the perspective because first of all, the liability is introduced. This direct liability of the management of the company, management of the organization, that if it fails to meet NIS2 requirements, there are consequences, both financial, but also direct responsibility of the person who is managing the company, including removal of this person from the management position if the breach of compliance is continued. So this is very important step. Secondly, the scope of the companies is much broader than before. So we are talking right now not only about the typical set of services like energy, like water, like transport or banking. The NIS2 is putting into essential bucket also the pharmaceutical companies, also healthcare and digital infrastructure. So internet exchanges, the service providers which are in telco slash internet providing type of business. And also added is the central and regional government. Now, this is the scope, right? And I would encourage everyone who's interested in what NIS2 is bringing to the table to look if your company, if your organization is subject to NIS2. And I can tell you that in majority of cases, the essential bucket is already covering a lot of companies in every country in Europe. There's also second bucket, important class, so operators of important services like post, like waste management, chemicals industry, food industry, manufacturing of medical devices or electronics. And this is very interesting because the liabilities there are smaller than for essential, but it's kind of preparation for the next phase, probably NIS3, when the industry from important bucket will be upgraded to essential part. Now, to your question about encryption, you can find explicitly in NIS2 that there should be a direct encryption of usage of the encryption considered in policies and procedures implemented in the companies subject to NIS2. So how to read this is since NIS2 requires you to have efficient procedures and based on risk analysis and building the right security policies, requirement to use to secure voice, video, text communications, securing emergency connectivity means that you need to deploy encryption in these areas. There's both the infrastructure protection, but also the content protection. So just not only continuity of these communication channels, but also securing what is inside those channels. And of course, encryption can be for everything, but it can be also selective, dependent on the value of the data which is being processed. But it is interesting that NIS2 is naming this specific technology, naming the encryption as one of the essential things that have to be implemented. It's not luxury anymore; it's a must. There are more requirements which are very interesting, and they go beyond what NIS, original NIS from 2016, was putting in place, where the focus was on security assessment, focus was on the things which were more like generic. NIS2 is very specific. Management of the human resources, of again, risk assessment, which is human-centric, let's say, identifying the malicious behaviors, and identifying the risky behaviors of the people, applying the right policies depending on this risk assessment, making sure that you can not only enforce those policies, but also during the audits, you can produce the evidence, how you approached it. And again, with the compliance, compliance is mostly documentation. If it's not documented, it hasn't happened. But having based on the risk assessment, based on the threat modeling, you need to have the right policies in place. You need to have the right procedures. You need to be able to show how you are transferring data between your environment and your partners' environments. How do you communicate with the third parties? How you secure this communication? For the internal communication, again, zero trust is a perfect example here, because when we started the discussion today, this division of the system into subsystems, into information processing domains, needs to stay there, because this is fundamental thing for security. But because of NIS2, but also from a general perspective, in order to keep some kind of control over information exchange, you need to look at the actual data, not just the protocols, not just implementation of the firewalls which are dividing the systems, but look at what is actually being transferred. Just imagine you have a production company. Maybe let's say it's a power plant. You have the OT system, which is running the actual power production, and then the office network. And you follow the NIS2 requirements, and you build the security systems for both of those areas. Does it mean that, for example, if you create the SOC, or if you at least build a CM system, so security information management system, do you need to have two CMs, one for one separate system and one for another one, so one for IT, one for OT? It doesn't make sense, because if you want to actually see what is happening in your environment, you need to have big picture containing both IT and OT. Now, how do you do that if you want to gather data in two isolated systems and you want to keep the isolation? So here the zero trust comes in place and say, let's provide just one-way communication. Let's assume that those two networks are potentially in danger. So let's assume that we can take some data out, but not put anything, no data back. So there's no attack vector coming from outside. This would work for CM, but at the same time, you want to have this connection between office network with the production statistics, with the analytics, to have some influence on what is happening in OT environment. And two diodes form a cable, so you cannot have two diodes in two directions. So you need to have a tool which will be able to transfer the data and inspect what is actually being transferred. And only the things that you want to have to be transferred should follow, again, the policies and procedures that you have in place.
Okay, Michał, we are going to the end of our meeting, so maybe somebody has any question, because still now nobody asked Michał about nothing. So next CypherCast will be in 2 weeks, and during next CypherCast we will talk with Mateusz Kopacz about cybersecurity in Polish healthcare. But another one CypherCast will be in 4 weeks. It will be in English language, but I don't know title now. So we will inform you about our meetings on our LinkedIn and in other communications and social media. So I see that somebody is asking and typing something. So maybe it will be first question.
There were some comments about zero trust is not just AAA, right? It's really assuming that since we have some kind of risk that the systems we are managing have potentially some malicious element inside, we need to be able to just do the minimum thing which is required to conduct certain operations, certain activity. So assign the rights on demand, only in the moment where a certain access is needed, not have continuous access to everything and all the assets in the certain area. It's really like a combination of the tools that we already had in place, but not applying them blindly and giving like full access everywhere. So if someone hijacks my credentials, they are not able to do everything immediately because there will be a secondary control mechanism which will block further usage of such stolen credentials.
Okay, so I see that there is no question. So I would like to say thank you, Michał, for sharing your knowledge, and maybe you have something to tell our audience at the end.
I think that this question about compliance doesn't mean security, of course, but this is kind of incentive for the organization to build better procedures, to seriously look at threat assessment and risk assessment. NIS2 requires the companies to have very strict notification about the incidents, so it has to be treated very seriously. It's not a side activity. It's something which is very important for the operation of the company. And compliance is not security, but at least it brings some structures. At least it brings some visibility, which is required to improve our security posture. Because it's like with aviation industry. If we would keep information about the incidents, about the reasons for the airline crashes silent, no one will learn for the future. No one will be able to fix those problems, both on the human side, but also from the system side. So no one will be able to make aviation safer. So we want to make security better and more accessible for everyone. We want to make sure that such essential service operators, essential infrastructure operators, are more visible. The role in the state is more understood, but also that there is certain effort to ensure that they operate continuously, even if there is a will to destabilize one or many of them. I'm in the big hope that NIS2 is going to bring us more clarity to the market and make basically our lives as people living in this part of the world basically better.
Thank you, Michał. Thank you all for participation in our event. We will see in 2 weeks, and bye.
Thank you.